The ancient story of Sampson that you see in the Bible really has a more ancient root to itself than that, and it goes back to other zodiacal stories, and it itself is indeed a zodiacal story where he goes through the labors that he has to go through. And the secret to Samson's strength, of course, is his hair. Whenever you look into the story, though, he's a Nazarene. And if you study the Nazarene people, they have vows of chastity that they go through periodically. And whenever they do, they don't cut their hair. They were a people that kept their hair well groomed, but yet when they would go through vows of chastity, or times where males were available, or suitors, if you will, they would grow out their hair to indicate to others, as the Jesus look kind of in that, if you will, and Jesus was a Nazarene, to show that he was eligible yet celibate in some ways. And a usable value of chastity was 1 moon, a lunar cycle, some 30 days, really 28-ish days. And they had a lunar calendar back then. And so you would try to go through that vow of chastity. Conspicuously, that does go with a woman's cycle of 28 days. And so this would be a normal vow of chastity of you growing your hair out and then cutting it. And you would cut it at the temple. It would be a sacrifice that you would give unto the sun god, Shamosh. Now, Shamosh is a famous sun god that comes from the Sumerians, and he was supposed to have been one of the sons of An, Enki, and Enlil, an offspring directly from An that was the sun god Chemosh. Now, in Hebrew, they have an H, and so Sampson was actually Sham's son, and Shams is another name for Shamosh, and indeed in the Bible, the name of the son is Shamosh, and the sun god that's worshipped by, I believe, the Edomites is Chemosh or Chemosh. So it's all the same deity that they're going through. And he symbolically kills the lion. And if you look in this photo here, it's a famous painting here of the event. But down here at the bottom, there's a lion's paw that holds her bed rest that she's on. There's a dog, a domesticated dog. Down here, there are shears in her hair that is cut. There's a lyre that's back here. There's an old lady that's hidden in this picture that seems to be part of the event, and strangely she's just hidden in a black area that is margined extreme right here, and then there's outside scene that you see here where he is being taken. He has had his hair cut, and he's being taken by these different people who you would see as being a Prussian warrior in blue, right? Somebody who would represent a Thracian or a Trojan warrior. Somebody here that is a soldier, wearing a conspicuously latter Greek outfit and even the sandals to go with it. Doesn't quite show in the picture, I don't believe. And this man here, leaning in, a heretic-looking man that contained a mace, as in Macedonia. So the secret to Samson's hair is that people believe, and even to this day, that there's a virility that you get, an extra strength that you get by being celibate right before prize fighters go into fights, before big events, before the Super Bowl, before these things. Guys ask this of each other so they will have more virility. It's supposed to build up more testosterone, and in fact, tests have shown that after a few days of celibacy, you have slightly more testosterone build up in your body. And this can help you to become extremely strong, strength over time. And so he had this long hair and a vow of chastity or celibacy that he had had over a long time. But it all ended whenever he got with Delilah. Now, Delilah seduced him, and repeatedly, and eventually he ended up having to cut his hair. And this would show and signify the end of his chastised period, the end of him being celibate, how he had actually had sex with her, and so his hair was cut. Now, this could be looked as a heretical event too, because he was supposed to have been chaste during this time, and then he wasn't. Well, so they cut his hair. Nazarenes parted their hair, and it's believed that they could have even made them into something like a dreadlock type of thing whenever they would go through long times of this, and of course grow out their beards and so on. And anyhow, so Chemosh, this sun god, Sampson, goes back to the stories that correlate with it and end up being the same Greek and Roman gods that you know of. And so you have Hercules that corresponds to this, and the 12 labors of Hercules, signifying the 12 signs of the zodiac that he has to go through, of the ancient Celtic and Greek zodiac that they had, that conspicuously is extremely close to the Sumerian version of the same thing. And Sumerians are looked at as being one of the progenitors, of course, of the Caucasian race. And a lot of their statues have blue eyes and things along that. But I digress. The Sumerians are also looked at as being Aryans from Sumer, and Sumer being the land that was always summer because it was down south away from the firmament. They described the firmament as being not like the Bible, as being a crystal dome that held up some water that was space that God let loose and caused a flood, but their firmament above and below was the fact that the North and the South Pole were frozen over, and ice could form out of water due to the cold, north and south. And indeed, in one of their tablets, it shows that they take a ride on an eagle to try to go up and see On, the great god Anu or On, and in process of doing so, the person is scared, and as he goes up, it goes up levels of height, and he can see things fading away, much like you would see if you were in a hot air balloon, and describes it fairly well as people become small like ants, and then everything becomes smaller, and he can tell that there's water surrounding everything, and that the planet itself looks white on top, white on bottom, blue ocean surrounding a brown landmass. They have there in the maps that they show, though it doesn't quite show a good example of Africa or places like that. India and all of the far Near East are all very much shortened and pulled over, and what is Russia and stuff seems to be water there too. It's just all contained in a circlet that they have as being their known world. But I digress. So in this same story, you have the 12 labors of Hercules, which is basically a mockery or mimicry of this same concept here. Now, Hercules also had long hair showing in his, but this depiction here that you see of Sampson is perhaps an Akkadian coming under the rule of all of the other people, and the fact that they had, taken and cut his hair. There isn't a primordial exact story to go with this that makes it match, but it's also a way to say that by the fact that he became swooned under her and lost his celibacy, i.e., his hair became cut, this union caused the downfall of his civilization. And that old lady has something to do with it. So hair has a large part to play in some of these stories. Beards, the lack of red hair, blonde hair, women, celibacy, unions of men and women, causing things to happen over time. And it may look like just one simple union between two are causing a thing, but there could be an event caused by this that goes much deeper and esoterically constrains an entire history in it. and not just a moment in time as it seems to show here. Now they take him off, they burn his eyes out so he can't see anymore, but in the fact they thought that he was weak, then they let his hair grow back out and he pushes down the pillars of one of their great temples. And so they thought that he was gone, but yet he rose again. And this would mimic the Babylonians. This would also be your Akkadians again, too, and mimic the Sargon of Akkad type thing, the Naram Sin, and then the other Babylonian gods that came afterwards of Baal Hadad, and how Baal Hadad would end up being Baal, and that would be the lightning god or the storm god that controlled the waters and through his storms, and that chronologically locks into Zeus. And so Baal and Zeus would be the same guy, and Baal and Zeus were the son of Saturn, and so Saturn's son is Jupiter. Jupiter's Baal. Jupiter's son was supposed to have been symbolically Sampson or Shamosh, but his name in itself is a deified, saying that he is Shams, and the "in" on the end of it, on the end of it, just signifies a deifying, like Sargon. Like in the Greeks, they put us on the end, like Cronus and Perseus. And so when you see something like Zeus, it's really Zeus. And the Z was the ancient Phoenician symbol for that god, and a lightning bolt. And so that's the Z, us, that you see out of Zeus. Now, Saturn, if you look at some of my other videos, they go deep into it, but Saturn was known in the Levant area there as El, and he controlled the whole area, as in El Shaddai, El Olam, El Elyon, and the other names and epitaphs are out of the Bible. In fact, Bab El, Elders, Temp El, Chap El, Angel, Gabriel, Ariel, Michael, which is Michael, or prophets like Ezekiel, Nathaniel, Daniel, which is Daniel, or maybe Elisha, which means El is Yahweh, or Bealiah, which means Baal is Yahweh. And so where these all come from and where the deification goes. My other videos have a lot of connections that connect it all the way through Greeks and Romans and things. One important thing to note, the Greek and Roman gods weren't the gods of Greek and Rome. They were the gods of the entire world, or the known world, or this area, the Aryan area of the ancients, during a golden time, before all the wars, capture, and things going quite wrong in the world for a long period of time, before they began to go right again. Thank you for your time. Like and subscribe if you'd like. More info coming out soon. I appreciate you. Thanks.